The acting career of this Bono, Arkansas native has taken her from the stages of Memphis to the sets of critically acclaimed comedy series like The Righteous Gemstones and Kevin Can F Himself. Back home to live, work, and perform during the actors' strike, she's here to talk to me, Tony Isbell, about the acting life. This is a conversation with Mary Hollis in Bowdoin. Well, Mary Hollis in Bowdoin.
Tony.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I mean, we just closed a play together,
Yes.
and it was super successful, and everything's coming up roses. So I'm great.
I know. I'm so excited to be here too. They put together this beautiful backstage set. It's making me feel like we didn't leave on Sunday.
I know.
That the show didn't actually close.
I know. It's still, we can look forward to it again, but alas, it did close.
Yes.
It did close.
It was, I think, truly a highlight of my career, and I've been fortunate enough to be on a lot of different sets, and I'm going on, 25 years in some capacity on stage, or last 10 years in TV, and I think that this show and the experience with you and the WASP at Quark really provided some life this year. We're in the middle of a strike.
Yes.
Screen Actors Guild strike, and it was just so nice to have a place to hang my hat and get creative. And
Right. As we shoot this, there is a strike going on, so you haven't been able to work.
no, not in the way that I was working
Right.
in the last 10 years.
Right.
Being a part of the Screen Actors Guild has been so wonderful for me as a TV actor. It's how I get my health insurance. It's how I've made my living, and really can consider myself now a working actor.
Right.
But in June we went on strike, and so the opportunities, the jobs, I'm not about crossing that picket line.
Well,
so,
no, of course not.
So this show with you at Quark, you and Megan Lacey Lewis sort of magically appeared, and
Oh my gosh, it was kind of magic. We won't go into all the details, but so many dominoes had to be in the right place and fall in the right way for this to even happen. I mean, you could not have done the show had you not been on strike with SAG. You would have had other things to do. And the window,
we hope.
You would. And the window of opportunity was just right there at that perfect moment when we were doing the show.
Yes.
And so you've been doing TV for about 10 years.
Yes.
When did you start doing theater, though? How old were you?
I mean, I started in summer camps in and around Bono, Arkansas, where I'm from, at 5,
Really?
Started going to whatever, the Jonesboro has a great community theater called the Foundation of Arts that I participated in. At the time when I was growing up, there was this great 100-seat community theater in Walnut Ridge, Arkansas called Front Street. And my parents, we could, just as quickly as we could be classified as country people, my parents are amazing and exposed my big brother and I to so much art and theater. It was an interest of theirs, even though they've made their living mostly in, agriculture.
Right.
But I had access really, really young, around the age of 5. And I went to summer camp. I got to see people in shows up on stage. And I don't know that my parents thought I'd ever do it full time or want to pursue it for a career, but I sure did. And the fact that they were able to raise my brother, who has stayed very focused on agriculture and now runs a cotton gin in Monette, Arkansas, and I have gone on to Memphis, Chicago, Los Angeles, and back again. I think that's part of the reason of my success, is supportive.
Well, I'm sure it is. Your parents are lovely people. I had the chance to meet both of them. And I think your mom came to see the show 3 times.
Yes.
Yes, and liked it every time. So you started about 5. Did you know that you wanted to be an actress at age 5, or did that just kind of creep up on you?
I think I liked being up in front of people, and I liked, I think a lot of actors start out, I don't know if this is your story too, but when you're young, it's like, I love the validation. I like the attention. I love being up in the spotlight and understanding at a young age that not everybody can do that physically, mentally. It's, if public speaking is the number one fear and you don't have that, how exciting is it that you can exercise that?
Right.
I learned that at a young age, and they're just along the way, and this is still true to this day, there has been nothing that I have done or been exposed to or had experience with as far as a career that I ever wanted to do more. This is the thing that I want to do more.
It's the thing that you wanted to
I
do,
want to make characters.
and you got to do it.
I want to entertain people, and that there was a shift that's happened somewhere along the way from, wanting to be the center of attention or like getting the
Right.
bitten by the theater bug, or loving, being up in front of people, making people laugh, to also understanding that what we do as actors is like sociology. It's the study of, empaths and
Right.
observing people. And that has become the kind of thing that excites me
And bringing
most.
all that to your work, whether
Yes.
it be on the stage or in film or TV or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. So you started young. No, I didn't really begin until I was in high school.
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't really get that acting bug that early. I was not exposed to it. So my exposure was to television, and I always wondered, how did those people know what to say? I remember asking that. I said, how do they know what to say?
Right.
Because my parents told me, well, this isn't real, this is just a show.
Yeah.
They'd be like, somebody writes it for him. And I was like,
Yeah.
somebody writes that?
It's
I
a
was just
story on
amazed. It's a
screen.
story.
Yeah.
I didn't understand.
Yes.
So when you got older then, you started at 5, were you still doing it when you were in high school? I assume you were, like high
Yes.
school plays and things
Yes.
like that?
Even more so. I mean, there's as idyllic as my childhood was, there's also a really a traumatic event in my childhood. I survived a shooting at my middle school in 1998. And, I had always kind of been acting. I got so much, positive reinforcement from that. It was, this sort of gift, and I loved participating in the community theaters around town. But post the shooting and this traumatic event at 12 years old, I think that what theater then became was not only a great escape for me, apart from school, but in the years after junior high, high school, up to like my early 20s, theater also was a place where I could go and try to find answers to questions answers I'll never have, right? The shooting happened and nobody can tell me why.
Right.
And nobody, and that search, I think, was always, I got to like dip in and put on other people's shoes in the theater and try to walk around as them. And, I was just coming up with all these answers to questions for other experiences, funny or tragic.
Yeah.
And I think that really like emboldened me. I think it's also part of the reason why I clung to it so much.
Right.
After that moment, I was only doing theater.
Right.
I also did try to play volleyball for a second, and I was very, very bad at that. So
Okay. Well, it's a good thing you chose theater then. Yes, I'm kind of the same way. I didn't have a trauma like you described, but the ability to kind of become these other characters in a safe environment and do extreme things sometimes in a safe environment and see how that feels you and makes you feel and search out answers to life, like you said.
The shooting also of maybe interesting note occurred on my playground. So where children play, where we played, me and my
supposed to be
friends.
safe.
Yes. The theater became my new playground.
Right.
And it has been. I mean, even as recently as our experience at at Quark and the
Theater.
Wasp.
That's right.
This year it also was my
is.
playground.
Well, so how did you're from Bono, Jonesboro, right? Bono, but you know,
Bono,
Jonesboro is the
Jonesboro.
big town.
Yeah, Bono is Jonesboro adjacent.
Okay. So how or why did you end up coming to Memphis to do theater? I've always been curious.
I think, probably partly because of the shooting and kind of growing up in the aftermath of that with my classmates who are lovely and beautiful souls who will always sort of be on that playground surviving that thing with me. I think as I got older, two things were happening. One, I had sort of done the work that I thought I needed to do on the sort of community level, and I wanted a different challenge. I also wanted a different scene. I think something that I've always been sort of conscious of starting out very early on was watching the people that I was working with and some would say stealing from them, but also I think just learning in that capacity, being backstage, being in a rehearsal process. And so when I had kind of felt like I was ready for the next challenge, I went to Memphis. And I also probably found Memphis because it was far away from, being kind of tagged as this little kid from the playground. So I got to kind of go on my own merit. It was like, I was kind of proving that I wasn't perhaps special or needed to be, tenderly taken care of in our community. And the challenge was, can I actually do this? And can I do it around people who I found in the Memphis theater community to be completely iconic and so talented? I got to watch so much good stuff as a 16-year-old. I came over to work at summer camp at Playhouse.
Yeah.
And I auditioned for a show, and I bumped out one of the Playhouse interns. I'm still very sorry about that.
I won't ask who.
And I do remember I lied to Brian Mott, who was the director of that project, and I told him I was 16 at the time, but I told him I was 18. And I also told him that I lived in Memphis because I didn't want driving from Jonesboro to be a deterrent. Like I
Right.
wouldn't be committed to that, that project. And he cast me. And, my character said a lot of really colorful things. That's continued in my career,
And
actually.
What show was this?
It's called Anton and Show Business
Yes,
at the then Circuit Playhouse.
Right.
But Anton, I played this, young elementary school teacher who was just having her first theater experience. And so many of those things were so in line for me on stage during opening night, And the end of the monologue that she gives with just her and a ghost light on stage, she says, someday I might get choked up. She said, someday I'd like to be in a play like that.
Yeah.
Well, you came tonight anyway. And then the ghost light goes out and she leaves the stage. And I was, at 16 years old having this experience with, again, such talented people. And I thought, and they were clapping and then they were on their feet. And I thought, maybe I can really do this. Maybe I can really pursue this as a profession, you know.
I think it was at the end of that show. I just remember Brian Mott was talking about you to me after I had seen you. I can't remember if it was that show or he directed you in something else too, didn't he?
Brian directed me in several things while he was here.
Well, at the end of one show, I said, boy, she was really good. And he said, yeah, and she's only 16.
Right.
And I was like, what?
For our audience, I did finally tell him that I had lied to him.
Yeah.
But it was all just, because I had this dream and I didn't want to be counted out,
And so after that, after you made your debut in Memphis, then you went on and did many other shows here for about 5 years, 6 years, or was it even that long?
Not even that long. I started at 16 and I was done, and that was in 2002, Anton.
Okay.
So yes, you're not far off. I left in the summer of 2006. I chopped it up to like 3.5 years.
Okay.
And I worked all around. I worked at Theater Memphis. You and I never worked together then.
We never worked together.
But I knew you and I was a huge fan back then, so that made circling back to you all the more like reasonable and exciting.
In fact, when you and I talked about doing the WASP, I think I even said, do you remember me? And you said, yes, of course I remember. And then later when we were rehearsing, I said, do you remember we had one conversation? And you didn't even remember it. I just remember us at a party after some show. It may have been one I directed, and you were there. And we had about a 10-minute conversation on a balcony and outside at somebody's house. And I was not in a very good mood, and you were kind of trying to cheer me up or something. And I always remembered it, but you forgot it, so I guess it didn't mean that much to you.
You reminded me of that, and I couldn't help but think to kind of go back in the Rolodex, and something was coming to mind, like I think that you might have been working on a show or directing a show, or it was just not, I think it was in the context of work.
Yeah.
And I sort of remember, like, I don't remember it as a pep talk. I just remember going like, this cool actor is talking to me about being frustrated about the work. And again, one of those moments where I was like, I'm doing it. I can hang,
I can hang. Well, so you were here for like 3.5 years, whatever, 4 years.
Yes.
And then you decided to move to Chicago.
Yes.
When you did that, did you have in mind at that time transitioning to TV, or were you going up there for theater, or what?
Only theater. And I followed a couple of really talented Playhouse interns up there. Some people might know Michael and Angela Ingersoll from back in the day. And I was, a big fan of their work, but also they were just, so many of those interns who came through were just like 8 to 10 years older, big brothers and big sisters to me. And Michael and Angela said Chicago, and I hadn't been thinking about even leaving Memphis, but I also thought, I guess, I always saw myself in theater, and if I was going to pursue it professionally, New York is the place that you go,
Right.
you know? It's like that pipeline is just like from your tiny town,
Right.
you're a
Directly
small
to New
community, go straight to New York.
Right.
And they mentioned Chicago, and then they started talking about it as they were doing their own research, and I just sort of absorbed that as like this theater community where you could have a day job and maybe not starve to death,
Right.
and then also go and do your work at night. And it's a stamina that only like somebody in their early 20s, I think, can handle.
Yeah, and
But I
not
did it.
starving to death is always a concern for actors. So.
Yes, yes.
So.
But I did. To answer your question about the TV experience, because I grew up in the 90s, and my mom actually worked for our local ABC affiliate in Jonesboro, our tiny, TV station.
Right.
She was the program director. My
Oh,
mom
okay.
has always been an avid TV watcher.
Okay.
We watched everything except for I had to go to bed before, Twin Peaks came on at a young age. But I remember watching these women on the TV shows and feeling so completely like I'll never be on TV because I don't look like Ally McBeal. There was no sort of world in which a girl like me who's, round-faced and dark-headed gets a spot on TV. That just,
Yeah.
that wasn't crossing my mind. And as I came up in theater, I kept hearing over and over again this thing which I hope we're getting out of, which is in, training. It's like you won't work until you're a character actress. You won't
Yeah.
work until you're 40 or 50 years old. And I think that's so stunting, right?
Right.
But I believed that. And so I thought I can go spend some years in Chicago really cutting my teeth some more. Again, another challenge in a different group, learning from these actors. And then someday I'll go to New York and I'll be old enough to be on stage. Finally I'll be the
Finally
character
you'll make it
actor.
to-
Yes, yeah.
TV. Right.
So I didn't expect the TV thing at all.
So you just kind of fell into that because they were shooting all these shows in Chicago at that time,
Yes.
like Chicago Hope and
Yes.
Chicago Fire, or
Yes.
whatever.
Yes.
So you're incredibly talented, but also I'm sure a big part of it was just good luck.
It was. I mean, and I understand that word luck being also luck has to, intersect with being ready
Right.
and having some skill.
Right.
So luck is not, yes, I got lucky, but I was also ready for
were
the
ready,
opportunity
yes.
because I had been, I don't have many great qualities, but one of them is that I love this so much that I practice and I worked hard and I showed up on time and I was prepared and I had ideas and questions, and I've done that because it's the thing that I like to do. It's it's my cello,
I would disagree that you don't have many good qualities, but I will take you at your word for now. So you got started in Chicago, and you decided to go to Los Angeles.
Yeah. So, Chicago was a place where I got my first TV gig. I'm mostly convinced that it was because an intern at a casting office had seen me in a play,
Okay.
liked that performance in that play, then brought me in for an audition
Wow.
where I didn't have any representation at the time. I was just going it
Right.
alone. And in Chicago, you could do that. You could walk into a room without having a rep.
Yeah.
And they cast me, and I'm convinced that they cast me because I seemed like a normal, kind, down-to-earth person that they could send to set to deliver maybe one line that I wouldn't get in anybody's way, And I did. I went and I shot the Chicago Code, and it was one line, and I opened the door for Jennifer Beals over and over again, and didn't get in anybody's way and didn't move any furniture around because that's some, crew guy's job, and you can get into a lot of trouble for that. And kind of only spoke when spoken to, I think, and did my job. And it wasn't about me. I was an actor in this
Right.
scene, and so much of that I learned in theater.
Right.
Which is like, you come out and you deliver this
You
thing.
do this, and then let everybody else do their thing.
Yes, right.
So from there, you went to Los Angeles, and you got on some bigger shows like The Righteous Gemstones and Kevin Can F Himself and The Real O'Neills and lots of other guest starring
Yes.
things.
Yeah.
So I've heard you say that you've had a very fortunate career.
Yes. Yes.
And I think you have.
Yes.
And you alluded earlier to the fact that you've been able to make a living doing
Yes.
this now.
Yes.
And even though you're a wonderful actress and people might recognize you, you're not like somebody whose name they might. If we didn't know you, we might not know your name. We might be, oh, that woman who's on, Righteous Gemstones. So how does that compare to working with people like, I don't know, John Goodman or somebody that?
Yes.
Do you find that you're treated differently on set? Do you find that it's...
The majority of sets I've been on, good fortune comes to mind, is that I've always been treated really, really well on those sets, whether I had a really small part or I was, number 2 on the call sheet, which would be a starring role. Right. My experience, though, as a working actor, I have always understood the difference between, like, what I wanted to accomplish, and what I wanted to accomplish was to make a living.
Right.
Being an actor. It was never, with the rise of Instagram and social media, I'm now going to be an influencer, or I want to be a celebrity like, so many reality stars. I freeze, honestly, when a camera comes on and they're like, talk about your day. I'm just like, I don't.
I got
No, my skill is give me a script, let me empathize, let me get to the bottom of why this person is acting this way. Let me try to make it funny in more occasions than one. I've just always known that acting was the thing. And so I understand that when you're a working actor, the job is auditioning.
Right.
It is not actually booking the show.
Right.
That is just like
icing
icing
get
on the
cast
cake.
Before anything.
Yeah, I am still somebody who doesn't get recognized, but certainly when I'm walking around, people think that we went to college together. There's like a familiarity that's like, hey, wait a minute. And so much of that right now is coming from Righteous Gemstones because it's such a popular show.
Right. So let me ask you this, hypothetically. Say there was no financial consideration.
Yeah.
You could make a living doing theater just as well as you do doing TV. Would you, if you had to pick one or the other, would you pick theater? Would you pick TV? Maybe I'm putting you on the spot and that's not fair.
Gosh, no. It's a great question. I haven't thought about it in any real way recently.
Right.
Probably because I'm fortunate to have recently had a theater experience that was so exciting, that's making me lean back into, hey, why did I ever give up on that New York thing, But then also, I've had such a good time morphing into a TV actor, which it does provide a different sort of technical expertise than, my
and
theater
I think
training.
it requires, they share skills, but it requires different skills too.
Yeah,
of course.
So I've learned, I just really enjoy both of them. I love the beating heart of a live performance. I love that it's not really a play if you didn't perform it in front of somebody.
That's right.
Did it really happen? It takes all of us in that room. It takes your reaction as an audience member. I loved having that reminder.
And getting that, because we had some really good reactions to that show.
Yes.
Laughter and gasps.
Yes, and at a time when I kind of needed to be built up a little bit. It was so nice to have a room full of people when they were enjoying our show, reminding me and Megan and you that it was working. And on a TV show, it can feel sort of isolating.
Because people can't react until the sound and cameras are cut.
And they call it don't tickle the bear.
Yeah. Oh, is that?
Don't tickle the bear. Also, I think any sort of reaction, just from the technical aspect, you don't want sound to be interfered with, distracting the actors. Right. But also because technically, while it's still performing on camera, the camera is so smart and can see what you're thinking. So something I had to learn as a theater actor to a TV actor is something we've heard before, which is you've got to bring all of that in and focus all of that energy into just the thoughts in your head. And if you don't have them, the camera can see that. Because
you said when you first started auditioning in Los Angeles, people would instantly say, "Oh, you're from the theater," because they could, you were too theatrical.
Oh, those hairdos after I got done with a casting session were just completely blown back. But I learned that way. I learned that, you have to perform for everybody in that room. You have to make sure that the last row and whatever type of theater you're in can hear you, see you, understand.
Right.
With, sometimes some lack of being able to actually see your face well. So you're using your whole body. And then when you're not doing that, when I get in front of a camera and I can't move from where that box
Right.
has got
You have to stay right
all of a
there.
sudden are going, okay, this is not about the movement or the performance. This is about all the thoughts in my head.
Right.
And making them truly as subtle as possible has been something that I'm still working at,
Yeah.
And some of the projects too that I keep getting called to do in comedy, big, broad
A little more
comedy,
right.
are like, hey, could you bring some of that back out?
Yeah,
That would you fall in this potato salad? And I'm like, this feels like theater. Take me back.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Okay.
There are also, as I get older, 2 different levels of stamina and energy. One, we've just come off this
Right.
run, and it was, it's a 90-minute show. And some other actors might go, easy peasy. Well, I've aged 10 years since the last live performance I did. We took them on a ride.
Plus, it was very emotional and very
Yes.
intense.
Yes,
and
I
so,
came off
yeah, it
stage
takes a
and
lot
I
out
wanted a
of you.
cheeseburger and I wanted a bed. And, I think when you get on set, you're doing a whole bunch of like managing your stamina and preserving your energy in a way that's like, we might be doing 3 pages of dialogue on camera, but I have to be ready to go like, cry right now, cut, go back and wait in your chair for an hour and a half.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And trying to keep that like, trying to keep sort of engaged, but not burn yourself out by the end of the day. It's just interesting.
So I guess the answer to my question would be you'd like to be able to do both of
Do
them.
both, yes.
Just whenever you can.
Yes. The lofty Broadway dreams are, and while there's, definitely room for everybody, I think that Broadway, in order to survive, or even off Broadway now, in order to survive, is having to take in some familiar faces. So perhaps the more familiar my face gets on TV, maybe an invite will
Maybe
come.
they'll get an invite and you'll be on Broadway someday. I hope so. If you do, I just asked for a couple of comps for opening.
Yes.
Okay? Can I get that?
You've got them.
Well, listen, Mary Hollis, this has just been delightful to sit here and talk with you, and it was very delightful to get to work with you on stage.
Thank you.
Because
I
we
feel the same.
just sort of knew each other, and now I feel like we're friends for life.
That's right. I'm a big fan of yours, Tony. as
Well, I'm a big fan of yours, Mary Hollis and Bowden.
You got another I name just like me. We would have sat next together in school.
That's right. We would have. Except I'm old enough to be your daddy, so other than that, we would have sat right next to each other.
I'm a fan for life, Tony.
Okay, me too. Thank you, Mary Hollis.
Thank you.